Okay, so day one of the North Texas RPG Con 2023 edition. I have talked to Darlene, bought a book from James Shields. I got my Hyperborea book signed by Jeffrey Talanian. I ran my game. We only had 4 players instead of 6. We had a no-show, and Herman realized he played it last year, so he opted out this time. So we only had 4 players, but we had a blast. It doesn't work as well without all 6 players because there's stuff that each of the characters knows about somebody else, and if you have 2 missing, well, then, you know, that part of the intrigue is gone. So, but it was all right. And one of my players' characters died. Vicky Vandermeer died. And she was bitten by a bat and then by a zombie, and she was rotting away. They all got away from the the zombie horde. One of them, David Hilliard, used an EpiPen to get them away from the zombie horde. He attacked one of them with an EpiPen and just had a spectacular roll. So, yeah, what he did caused an avalanche of zombies down the hill, and they were just in a wad in the mud, sliding down the the hill toward the trees, and the player characters ran and got to the ambulances, all 4 of them, and then Vicky Vandermeer died, and the rest of them are getting help for their wounds, and there's a wreck on the road, and there's all this chaos, and they had Vicky's body on a gurney in a bag, and then she sat up, and that's where we ended. So that was cool. I met Kelsey Dionne. She's the one who wrote, excuse me, Shadow Dark, which I backed. And I'll have my book sometime this year because it's already written. They're just basically waiting for the printing. So that's cool. And I'm going to, if we can meet up tomorrow, after my game, after her game, before her game. I think she has one at 6:30 something. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm going to interview her. Quick interview. I've got like 4 questions here. They are playtesting a I think it's called Monster Crawl Classics. So a Dungeon Crawl Classics spin-off where you play the bad guys. They're playtesting it right over there in a few minutes. So, and the guy who's running it, the guy there at the end of the table, the bald guy, he was in my game earlier. Really enjoyed it. And somehow he sat down at my table, and I mentioned that my friend Herman was supposed to be there, but I didn't think he was going to play. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I know Herman." How the hell do you know Herman? Anyway, they met at Long Con a couple years ago, I guess. So, good. And it's him and the guys from Long Con who are working on this project, the Monster Crawl Classics, or I think that's what it's called. Anyway, so they do not serve Coca-Cola products in this hotel. not happy about that. I always forget it. I should bring my own Cokes. But regardless, that is it for now. I am waiting for others to show up for Traveler. And it should be fun. I've never played. So, new experience for me. All right. I will sign off and I'll be back with another report later. Bye-bye. Hopefully I don't screw this up. Kelsey, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kelsey Dion. I founded a little company called the Arcane Library, and I just recently wrote and did a Kickstarter for a game called Shadow Dark RPG.
Excellent. And how did that Kickstarter go?
It went way better than I thought. I was not planning on it doing quite so well, but it hit about 1.3 million, so which was just mind-boggling.
And what I want to know is, when did you hit your goal? When did you hit 10,000?
I think about 12 minutes into the Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
It was shocking. I really thought we would maybe do about 20 to 50,000 on it at the most. So, yeah, didn't turn out that way.
No, it did not. And good for you.
Thank you.
And Ben Milton is having a similar experience.
Oh yeah, he's doing so great.
Yeah.
He's just well deserved because he's been working hard for years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree. I wasn't able to back his because I backed yours.
Oh,
so
I'm sorry, Ben.
No. I'll pick it up, but I wasn't able to back it. Okay, so for those who don't know, how did you get into old school games in the first place? And and given your not so advanced age, I'm literally
I'm older
old
than
enough.
I look.
I'm literally old enough to be your father. So.
Oh man. Well, I was really lucky because I didn't realize that this was really special at the time, but I grew up in southern Wisconsin, and I was around a lot of the TSR alum that stayed in Lake Geneva, and the person who really first taught me to play Dungeons & Dragons was at the local game store in my hometown. It happened to be Mr. James Mishler, who is a really well-known old school person. He's one of the people holding the torches aloft for Judges Guild material and Wilderlands material, and so we were playing games with him. He was running sessions for us in the city-state of the Invincible Overlord since we were kids, and so
never got to play in that.
Oh, sometime there's every opportunity still. It's out there, but that's what D&D was to me when I was a kid. It was that style of play, and we were lucky to be around it in its nexus, kind of where it was still strong, because 3rd edition was coming out right around that time. So we got a really strong dose of how to play old school D&D that I think even if we had started 5-10 years after that, maybe we wouldn't have had quite that opportunity. So
how old were you?
I was in middle school, so I'm always trying to remember exactly when this game store opened and when we first started going there, but I think I was about 12. I was in 6th grade. It was the summer before 6th grade, so I was just coming out of 5th grade. Yeah.
Okay, about the time 3rd was coming out.
Yeah, it was 99, 2000. Yeah. We had been playing 2nd edition AD&D without having any idea what we were doing, patchworking it together and playing on the school bus and during lunch and after school, but we didn't know what we were doing. So, yeah.
Literally old enough to be your father. I was 38 around that time.
So you were around my age during that, when I was that age. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You're a few years older than my son.
Ah, I see. Yep. So there we go.
Okay, so what makes Shadow Dark different from, Swords and Wizardry or DCC or OSE or whatever?
Oh man, well, there's a ton of options. I mean, I feel like OSE and Swords and Wizardry are these beautiful kind of ways to preserve and polish original versions of D&D. I mean, Basic Expert, AD&D, they're kind of, I mean, OSE is more EX, but and I think that also DCC is kind of pulling from a specific era and trying to polish it with a more old school feel. So I think DCC is a little bit more 3E era polish into old school style. And for me, I'm trying to take Basic Expert and put like some of the math and simplicity of 5th edition, like everything is moving towards a high target number that you have to roll,
right,
and have like that kind of unified mechanic that started in 3rd edition, but I don't really think hit its stride until around 5th edition. So the whole game is built around that. It's like, what if Basic Expert had that math style of 5th edition? And it sounds simple. I think that's the real defining characteristic of it. So
that makes sense. And it makes sense to try to make those things make sense, because the math back then was...
And it all served its purpose. Like every subsystem and like AD&D had a game design reason behind it. But I think now, like we're 5 decades into the game, I think that like making old school accessible to people who have only been playing since 5th edition came out, I think it's really helpful to give them that like unified mechanic and a little bit of that familiarity, because then you can pull them towards the mentality of old school without it being as jarring, I guess.
Yeah.
That was my hope with it, so that's why I did it.
my experience looking back, I started playing in 1981, so
nice, yeah.
AD&D 1st edition, and it began to feel like this isn't a system. It's a bunch of subsystems thrown together into one book.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah. And I mean, they pieced it together and it worked, so let's publish it.
Right.
And then you don't have anything to compare it to, so this is how the game works.
Exactly, yeah.
But like you said, five decades in, we can do a little better. And I think you did.
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, I think 5e did, but
yeah.
I hate
it just isn't
all
the right
of the
vibe.
fiddly stuff and the saves and the death save and it's just too much.
It's so focused on your character being really special, which is fun, but it's so much of the system is built around that complexity of making your character cool. So it's like your character can do all this crazy stuff.
Right.
So now you have to have a system around it that's just as complex so they can take advantage of that. And it's kind of like it's just been this creep towards complexity that I don't think we really need to play the style of game that we want. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. That's me too.
That's why I'm back to your project. So
Thank you.
All right, so what was the first word out of your mouth when Shadow Dark topped $1 million?
Oh, I don't even remember. I think I just remember being like unbelievable. I genuinely could not believe that happened. It was honestly such a special moment. I couldn't have timed it better because we were at Gary Con when it happened.
Really?
And we had the super good luck to rent Gary Gygax's house on 330 Center Street to play one game there. We were like, we get to rent it for a couple hours to play a session there. We were like, we got it for like 6 hours that evening. We went out and had dinner, went to his house, and while we were mid-game, we were playing a Shadow Dark game, we rolled over $1 million, and I was like, this is the most haunted moment ever. It was so special. It was so cool.
That's cool. I probably the answer is no, but I'm just hoping somebody has that on video.
Someone did take a video of it. It was really, I was totally just not myself because it was so massive. It was such a massive moment. I was just like couldn't believe it, and it was at this special location. So it's on video, but it's mostly just me being teary-eyed and strange.
That's okay.
Yeah, but it was very special.
You've got part of it preserved. That's important.
I'm glad that the video's there because it's a reminder of how strange life can be and how special. So yeah.
I would have that right up there with my son graduating. That's.
It's like a once in a lifetime thing. It's like, wow, I feel very lucky that I'm someone who got to experience something like that. You know, it's a peak moment in someone's life, I think. Yeah.
I agree with most of that. I don't think it was luck.
Thank you.
You're very good at what you do. I've been watching your channel for a while. I rarely comment on anything, but I've been watching your channel for quite some time. Got pissed off once and, I just don't, it's too much 5th edition. And then I kept coming back and, yeah, but everything she's saying makes so much sense. It doesn't matter if it's 5e. Shut the fuck up and listen.
Thank you.
And,
I've been a sleeper agent for old school stuff in the 5e crowd this whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's kind of been it. Because I always think that, because I came up designing 5th edition once I became a professional in the gaming industry.
That's what's selling.
And that's what was out there. And I was like, well, if I want to reach people, that's the platform through which I'm going to have to do it. But I never quite adopted the style that's prevalent right now.
That's what I was getting.
Yeah. I was always trying to kind of pull back towards the ways that I remember playing. Because I don't know if you agree with this, but sometimes I feel like when we're designing games and running games and building systems, there's so many people out there building their own personal system. Like, we're kind of trying to pull ourselves back to how we played as a kid.
Yeah.
It's a huge through line,
Yeah.
and I think the reason that a lot of people design it the way they do. So for me, it was that. I was like, why were the games I played as a kid so cool and memorable and special? And it was, it was something about the old school is why. Yeah.
My whole 42 years has been an exercise in trying to simplify what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So all I run now is World of Darkness and Savage Worlds.
Nice.
Is anything you want to say in closing?
Thank you for those who are watching this. Thank you, and thanks for having me on. I'm so glad. This is my first year at North Texas RPG Con. That's where we're filming.
Please come back.
I would have loved it. I have an excuse now because I've never been able to quite make it work, and now I'm like, hey, the Kickstarter's over. I can go. We can play games, and I love this con. Everyone who's watching this should come to this con. It's a fantastic one. So
it's amazing here.
Yeah.
You get you and DM Scotty here, I think would be good.
Let's get him here.
Yes.
He's the nicest guy in the world.
I know.
I finally got to meet him in person, and I was like, is there a nicer guy? There's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wish you all the luck in the world with your game.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I walk into the room around them, pay no attention to the disgusting pillar of teeth, and peer, down around the sides and see if maybe there's something or someone that
encountered strange humans, pale people who are obsessed with stew for some reason, and lurking around the caverns over here. And as you moved in this direction, you guys encountered a strange being, some kind of oozy god named Mugwort. And stranger still, as you ventured through these caverns, you come into a room where there's a clear lake of water. On the bottom of it, there are gold pieces scattered all across the floor, shining, making the dwarves' eyes grow large with greed. And swimming in this strange lake is a golden catfish that speaks to you all. That's where we left off, and as our last scene was ending, our group of adventurers who had been speaking to this catfish, asking it questions, left us with Jorvin, dwarf fighter, diving into the pool of water after this gold, following his dwarven nose. And Iraga, reaching after him in slow motion, yelling, "No!" as he's diving into the water fully armored. And then we had the other dwarven brother jumping as well towards the gold. And daydreaming, standing back daydreaming about all the riches ahead of you. We have Martin. Martin, who had discovered a bag of strange mushrooms and decided at that moment to eat one.
That's what okay.
And then Uriel, standing back slow clapping as all this mayhem is bursting forward. And I think we've got everybody who's here covered. So let's grab your minis that I sent out right from here. And then as this all takes place, slow motion, mid-air, the torch that you were all holding up to see, since all of you were blinded dark, winked out.
So this is my wrap up for the North Texas RPG Con. Once again, 2 years in a row, this was the best convention I've ever been to. This surpassed last year's. So good job, guys. Gary, Bad Mike, everybody else. I don't know everybody's names, but I see what you do. Your efforts do not go unappreciated. Promise you that. Let's see. So what did I get to do? I ran my game Thursday. That was, I wouldn't call it a roaring success. I've had better games. I've had worse games. This was excellent, except we just didn't have 6 players. We only had 4. So there was a no-show, and Herman figured out that he had already played it. So he should have signed up for the sequel, which was Saturday. But more about that in a little bit. So I ran my game. I had a few hours off. I bought a few things. Got some cool stuff, including a set of dice for my wife. I played in a Traveler game, which was pretty good. The problem with mysteries for a lot of people is that they design the adventures so that there's a solution, because they read a book and that's the way the book ends. They see a movie and that's the way the movie ends. It's a mystery. That's the solution to the mystery. Except the problem with that is that they're not actually letting the characters do what the people in the books and the movies and the TV shows are actually doing, and that is figure out the clues. You're not figuring out the clues in a game like this. You're figuring out what the GM wants you to do. And that's not the same thing. This was a cool little mystery. And look, I'm the one who said the solution. I actually said the words at the end. So I got it. But, so in my experience, if you put all the clues there, clues that make sense, there's fingerprints, there's all this other, whatever. There's enough clues there to lead you to the right person. You don't have to write, you don't have to design into the game. It doesn't need to be baked in how they fit together and exactly what it is that happened, because I've seen games where the clues that the writer put in there actually pointed to someone the writer didn't intend. Now, who's correct? Well, I think the people who figured the shit out are correct. If you're a cop, or if you're a detective, if you're Sherlock Holmes and you follow the clues and you come to a conclusion, it may not be the one that the cop standing next to you had in mind, but oh, well, you're right. Your players might be smarter than you are. And I just don't think there were enough clues in the game that led to anything except one specific conclusion that you had to come to before the game ended. Other than that nitpick, that was pretty cool. I've never played Traveler before. I like how the system works. I appreciated that we weren't there to do combat. I do understand the GM's, I'm sorry, the name is eluding me at the moment, the GM's complaint about Seth Skorkowski adding combat to a Traveler adventure. I get that. I happen to be a fan of Seth's, but, you know, I get it. You know, if you don't want combat in there, you don't have combat. That's great. We had barely any combat in the second game I ran at the convention. So, yeah, I got no problem with that. Anyway, did that, came home. My wife was sick. We were both supposed to be there Friday and Saturday. She needed to stay home. So I came back Friday after making certain she was okay. I mean, gonna be okay. She toyed around with asking me to stay. I played around with the idea of just staying anyway, but we both decided that I should go. So I got in the car and drove back to the convention, and I spent the night that night. Friday, I had one game scheduled, and that was with my friend Mike running the game. It was, I forget what the scenario is called, but the game is Uncharted Stars. It's his own system. It's a D6 system, except for percentile dice. And it works really well. And that was kind of a mystery that we figured out. Now, it wasn't the same level of mystery. We were just trying to figure out what was going on. And then once we did, get the hell out of there because we don't want to die. And that's not the same thing. But, yeah, it was pretty cool. So we did that. During a break, while I was grabbing something to drink, I saw Kelsey Dion. I had met her the day before, and I told her I would like to do an interview that day if she was available. And she said that she would be, so we agreed to meet at 5:15. which was after my game was over and before her game that she was running started. I interviewed her. That's what's on earlier in this video. That went very well. She was very gracious and answered all my questions. I didn't have that many, but, very nice. I inquired afterwards if she had a seat at her table, knowing the answer would probably be no, and what she said was, I don't know how the convention treats or feels about walk-ups, but and our convention is fine with it. And I told her that, and she said, well, then I have a seat. So I got to play Shadow Dark with the creator running it. And that was cool. The game was great. We had a wonderful time. It ended with a a dwarf jumped into the water to get the gold. He can't swim. He's wearing armor. Freeze frame. Everybody told what they were doing, and we freeze framed. And my character was leaning against the wall, slow clapping, as 2 elves now are sinking in the water. And then Saturday, she was going to pick up right there with the next group. So they would be playing our characters, but picking up exactly where we ended. I went to bed. I got up early the next morning after a crappy night's sleep. Love that hotel. I mean, they do a great job with the convention, but not a fan of those beds. Anyway, got up at 8, got my ass downstairs, and played Hyperborea with Jeffrey Talanian running the game. So 2 games in a row. The creator of the game is the GM. And that was brilliant. My character died, and not just a little bit. This thing that was hitting him with an axe hit him and killed him, and took his second swing anyway and really killed him. So, yeah, that was fun. It was really a blast, the whole thing. And our group was successful, so good. Even though my character, got himself perished, it was okay. So, did that. Had an hour off, I think. And then I ran my game, my second game. And the first game was Big Thicket. The second one was Return to Big Thicket. And since my wife couldn't be there, and Herman had signed up for the other one by mistake, I had an empty seat. He came and played in the second game. So he got to play in the sequel. 2 people who played the first game with me last year, not in the session Herman was in, but anyway, two other people. I am not able to speak. 2 other people who played last year were in this game this year, and they comprised 2 of 5 guys who were in a gaming group together weekly, I guess. Whatever, I mean, regular schedule. And the other 3 wanted to get in this, but there wasn't a spot available, so they couldn't get in it. But we played that and barely had any combat, barely had anybody get injured. But it was touch and go, and their solutions were pretty cool. And this was the first time I'd run that scenario, so I got a couple little tweaks I'll make before I run it again. And I will be running it again soon for Jonathan's group, one of my players. So that's probably going to happen this summer. But after that, I ran quickly over to find the room Kelsey Dion was running her next session in, and I was there for the beginning of that, and that video is also on here, so you got to see that. And they picked up exactly where we left off, and I walked out of the place and finally saw Eric Tinkar, standing up front talking to a couple of people, including, I can't remember one of them, but the other one was the Greyhawk Grognard, and got their photos, and then I walked out of the building and drove back home and took care of my wife. And that was my weekend. Wait, what? I am not going to put you down, dear. Anyway, so yeah, successful convention. 10 out of 10 would do it again. We'll go back next year, and there's no doubt. So if you have never been to North Texas RPG Con, you need to fix that. I mean, if you're watching me, then you have an interest. If you want to learn a lot of stuff about a lot of games and meet a lot of cool people, that's the kind of place you want to be. There's some other great cons. If you're not in the area and you can't make the trip, find something near you. I mean, there's Gamehole and Gary Con and all that stuff back up in the Northeast, and Shire Con and hell, Gen Con if you want to go, and Origins and whatever the hell else. Whatever you can find. Find something and go. It's a hell of a good time. And my wife would agree, even though she didn't get to go this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Guys, I will see you later. And thank you for being here. Bye-bye and bye-bye.